¿Te has preguntado alguna vez qué hace una Venture Capital en un ecosistema cripto? Tenemos la oportunidad de entrevistar a Max Rebol, el cual tiene varios roles en el ecosistema, y una de ellas que quizás seguramente no hayas visto información en español dentro del ecosistema de Polkadot. En este canal tenemos la oportunidad de haberlo entrevistado en el Web3 Summit, uno de los eventos más importantes del mundo cripto. Si quieres saber un poco más acerca de este rol y qué están haciendo para crecer Polkadot y esa perspectiva diferente que tienen, quédate que te lo cuento. Max, thank you for coming to the channel. Can you present yourself? Who is Max and what is doing at the ecosystem?
Yeah, no, for sure. Thanks, Brian, for having me here. Good to be here in Berlin together. I'm Max Rebol. I think I kind of wear three different hats in the ecosystem that are all kind of relevant here. The main hat is I'm co-founder of Harbour Capital, which is a Polkadot-focused VC fund. We've been around for 3 years, based out of Hong Kong, investing in Polkadot-based projects. The second hat is Polkadot East, which is a DF-funded initiative by the Web3 Foundation. And this is all about like IR and growth and marketing for Polkadot in Hong Kong. And then the third hat that I'm wearing is a Polkadot Hat Ambassador. So I've just been voted in about a month ago and quite excited to be part of that initiative.
You have like three important roles at the end. You have the role from Head Ambassador, the role like Venture Capital, and the role in this case from helping to grow the community too, with this initiative that was presented to Decentralized Futures, right?
Exactly.
So we can start with the role that I'm more interested, that is the Venture Capital. You can explain exactly what makes a Venture Capital in crypto, not only in Polkadot, which is the real role? They are only investors or not?
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, look, so we started out about 3 years ago. I was personally a private investor in Polkadot. I met Gavin when he came to Hong Kong to promote the Polkadot ICO. And
that's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago, yeah. And then I followed the project ever since, and I really liked it. And I thought it was like a fantastic project. Then I teamed up with like another guy who also invested in the ICO during that time, but he's a much bigger whale, and he moved some of his DOT into the fund. So I would actively start manage it. And then we started growing this because we had this structure in place, and we started talking with other people that we were familiar with from my previous job as an investment banker, that we know from this previous life, and it was really interesting because they were all like, okay, yeah, that sounds like an interesting strategy. Polkadot is an interesting thing, but how to best invest in it, right? Shall I just buy DOT and hold it? Shall I stake it, right? Or shall I like invest in the various things that are building on top of Polkadot? And that's kind of what we then focused on. We accepted both DOT directly into the fund and US dollar, and then used that capital to invest in the various projects that are building on top of Polkadot. And that went pretty well, I have to say. We closed Fund 1 already, so we're no longer like accepting new subscriptions into this fund. And currently we're in the process of launching our Fund 2. We haven't officially incorporated it yet, but Fund 2 is also going to be a Polkadot fund, 100% focused on this single ecosystem, raising capital from...
Only in the Polkadot ecosystem?
Only Polkadot, yeah, 100%, yeah. So Polkadot, parachains, like apps building on top of Polkadot, but it has a very clear and very strong ecosystem focus.
You have a proposal that it's too coordinated with your work as Venture Capital, we can say it like this. How is seeing the Venture Capitals, this crypto world, or in your case, more specific Polkadot?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, I mean, we were thinking like we want to raise more capital into the Polkadot ecosystem. How we're going to best do that? Where should that capital come from? And sort of the number one source of capital that we identified really are those private family offices. So family offices are in a way wealthy families that maybe made their initial wealth in some totally different industries, let's say in real estate or in shipping or in finance or you name it. but then they're diversifying and they want to get into like new industries. And Web3 is obviously one of the more interesting ones here. A lot of our investors are in fact from the family office space, right? So they made their money somewhere else, but they want to come into Web3 and we facilitate that journey.
It's what we need at the end, because when we are in a beer market, nobody cares about Web3. Web3, it's that we can say like
exactly.
this. So we need to incorporate this Web2 enterprise. It's interesting that you have this role like an investor, and later you postulate like the head ambassador. Why? Because at the end you was playing like in a third person in this game, but you decide to be in first person.
Look, very easy, because I feel I'm representing Polkadot all the time anyways already. Right? So why not get the official title for it? I've been doing that for 3 years. I've been to like a million different conferences around the world, speaking about Polkadot, but not really on behalf of Polkadot. You know, in the past, I'm always like representing Harbour Capital, which is our fund, right? Which is a private fund, which is fine, right? We're investing in Polkadot. But if I want to speak on behalf of Polkadot, this head ambassador role gives me this title, if you want, right? I can go to a conference and, you know, which I'm doing anyways, and then speak for Polkadot, right? I think as a decentralized organization, that's something really important, because it's not just the employees of Parity and the Web3 Foundation that can speak on behalf of Polkadot, right? Now we as head ambassadors can do that as well. And in terms of amplifying the message and getting the message out there, I think that's quite important.
Yeah, because at the end I saw that this decentralization for all the users that are more active is like they kill use because we hadn't a specific role. They see us like another community members. I want that you come to me. How is the different communities between Asia, because you have been in Asia, and in Europe, because I'm seeing the proposals and sometimes the events are too different. Why we have this difference and how we need to focus in each area?
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk first about the fundraising part, right? Because that's kind of what I'm very much focused on at the moment. And I think it's also relevant for, you know, a lot of people here. Look, fundraising in Asia is very special because the family office culture is very well pronounced, right? In Hong Kong, for example, you have many of these like multi-generational family offices. So Asian family offices are quite interesting because you often have this multi-generational creation of wealth. Let's say the grandfather started off with shipping, right? Then the father went into real estate development, and now the third generation is taking over. They have like, you know, a significant fortune, but they're like looking what are the industries of the future. And then oftentimes they go like, okay, well, biotech is interesting, AI is interesting, and Web3 is interesting.
We have AI in Web3 too.
Of course, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of overlap, but they admit that they're not experts in every single field here, but rather they want to have the best managers for each of these verticals manage their allocation to this space. And that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We say, okay, we very much focus on Polkadot, right? Even all of Web3, it's a big topic, right? If you want to like know everything about every Bitcoin L2 or ETH L2 or like everything in the Solana ecosystem, there are a lot of things happening.
A lot of type of tokens.
Yeah, a lot of tokens, right? So it's kind of almost impossible by now to be an expert on anything, right? Yeah. Whereas we at Harbour Industrial said, we want to be like the #1 experts on Polkadot, investing in Polkadot. We know everything that's going on. We know all the teams that are building there. So if you want to allocate to Polkadot, right? If you believe in the ecosystem as a whole, the best way you can do it is like through our fund.
Which do you think that is the reason that we hadn't a lot of venture capitals in Polkadot? Because we can show Solana, and they had a lot of venture capitals. Yeah. Why is the reason? Which is your point of view on this?
Look, it's a great question. I mean, Polkadot started out so well, right? It was such a hyped project. I remember, like, you know, first the ICO, then like around the time when the parachain auction started, everyone was talking about Polkadot. The price like went through the roof.
Kusama was too crazy.
Exactly, Kusama, yeah, like dot above 50, right? Like these were like crazy times. There was a lot of anticipation. There was a lot of like VC money piling in. Now, through the bear market, you know, it has been pretty harsh, and a lot of VCs have lost their interest. That is unfortunately true. A lot of them have started selling their position, right, which is also very unfortunate, right? The price has been going down, like nobody can deny that.
Yeah, they are investors.
Yeah, exactly, right. But you know, for me running a VC, I feel like Polkadot is probably the contrarian trade of this cycle. Because currently, it seems to me very undervalued compared to where the tech is, right?
Yeah.
If the price is up, like everyone can say like, oh, hooray, this is a great project, it's the best thing ever. But if the price is down, then you have to be a contrarian investor to actually say, well, the tech makes sense, the community makes sense, it's worth putting more money into that rather than selling. But again, it's a contrarian trade, but that's where the money is made in the long term.
Yeah, for sure. At the end, it's interesting because at the end you have like this role being venture capital and head ambassador.
Yeah.
Max, thank you very much for being in this channel. I think that is the first time that I can talk with a venture capital and that is a content like this in Spanish. So if you want to say something to the community with your position as a head ambassador, that right now you aren't working, you are not working like a head ambassador because you haven't a salary, but I think that will be interesting that people knows better like which is your position like a head ambassador.
Sure, look, I mean the head ambassador program is of course very chaotic at the moment. I'm the first one to admit that. It's a decentralized effort, right? There is no like clear guidance from any like top-down organization because, as you know, most of your viewers will know, it was voted in through a referendum. Now it's kind of up to us to figure out what we would do with this. So, you know, I'm not saying that everything is running perfectly in this head ambassador program, but what I can say is that myself and, you know, probably most of the other head ambassadors, I cannot speak for them, but, you know, I believe that they are super committed to promoting Polkadot, right? And that's kind of how I think about this program. It's mainly about like creating visibility for Polkadot. It's also about like going outside of the echo chamber. This is one of my favorite terms, right? Because there are a lot of like these, you know, community events where we're only like within Polkadot people. But I think as an ambassador, it's all about going out, right? Going to different industries, different ecosystems, right? It's a bit like, you know, I always like to say the ambassador of France is probably not going to be working in Paris, right? Yeah. He's going to work in Brazil. He's going to work in, you know, China. So to represent France abroad. The same thing is for us as Polkadot ambassadors. We have to go out, right? There is not really much of a point to be just within the Polkadot ecosystem.
Yeah, only in the Polkadot event.
Exactly, at the Polkadot events. So it's very important for us to go to different events, different crypto events, yes, but also, for example, different tech events, right? Different tech conferences that are not that like crypto native, let's say. But that's where we can talk about Polkadot. That's where we can gain like more adoption. And for myself, you know, the way I'm thinking about this, I want to go out more to traditional financial conferences. So, for example, you know, there are like investor conferences around the world where are meeting to discuss different investment opportunities, right? So maybe there you have somebody presenting on investments in the renewable energy space, right, or in the, you know, real estate space, and then we can go there and talk about investments in the Web3, in the Polkadot space, right? So that's kind of how I envisage the program, right? I'm not saying that's the only accurate definition of the program, but that's kind of how I think about it. Like go out to the wider world and talk about Polkadot.
Totally agree. Thank you very much for being in the channel, Max.
Man,
just appreciate
thank
it.
you for having me. All right.
Dicho todo esto, señores, la verdad que ha sido una de las entrevistas que más me apetecían hacer porque realmente nunca había tenido la oportunidad de hablar con un Venture Capital, nunca había tenido la oportunidad de tenerla delante y que se sincere con nosotros, como habéis visto que lo ha podido hacer en este caso Max Rebol, y que al final vemos que Polkadot nos está brindando estas oportunidades cuando decimos de que la comunidad tiene el poder, como ha pasado, como estaba diciendo, de jugar en tercera persona a involucrarse más en primera persona, como es el caso también al final de este canal. Dicho todo esto, gente, muchas gracias por estar un día más aquí. Espero que les haya gustado la información que le hemos traído. No olviden dejarse su super like y suscribirse al canal, y así ya por fin nos vemos en el próximo vídeo, que también será otra entrevista.